Being a woman is so easy. You just have to look good, and a man in finance will pay for everything you want for the rest of your life. Being that man in finance, however, is so much more difficult, especially if you're 6'5" with blue eyes and a trust fund. Imagine the horror of having all of those things and still dealing with morons who have the audacity to think that you should be a chill and decent human being. When your dad owns a bank, it's your constitutional right to wake up at 3 p.m., invite 100 chicks to your private island, and give them the most marvelous of all gifts: Herpes Pro Max Plus. If you're one of those condom-using cowards, give your boys some hot sauce bling, just in case a girl takes him swimming in her birth canal. But what if your dad doesn't own a bank? How do you still become a man in finance? Well, you don't. You become a man in debt. But if you still insist on trying, here's a very easy guide. Step 1. Privileged beginnings. It all starts with picking the right grandfather. Make sure he is 6'5" with blue eyes, and tell him to stay away from those big booty Latinas when he is making your dad. Blue eyes are so superior that if you mix them with brown eyes, you get brown eyes. Also, avoid any man who cares too much about silly little things like morality, ethics, or human dignity. If Grandpa was born too late to benefit from slavery and colonialism, tell him to travel to Brazil, impregnate a couple of chicks, and sell the kids to Real Madrid. That trust fund money has to come from somewhere, son. Make Grandpa work hard so you don't have to. Do the same thing with your dad, then get born, preferably in a 12-bedroom mansion in Connecticut. Tell your parents to give you a sufficiently old money name: Randolph Wotherington von Finance Bro III. Now, people assume that you have made it when you're born rich, but this is a misconception. Being a rich kid is really tough. Can you imagine the trauma of having to beat maids with a leather belt because mommy sold your gold whip to pay for her nose job? Yeah, I can't either. I beat my maids with a diamond-studded baseball bat. Some heartless monsters might call this psychopathic, but you know how painful this life can be. You ask mommy if she loves you, and she tells you that she only got pregnant for the child support. You run to daddy, but he's never home. He's too busy living his best life somewhere far away from you. Step 2. Resume building. The next step in being a man in finance is suppressing your depression and building that resume. You have to start early. Volunteer to run some errands for your dad, go to the poor side of town and take photos shaking hands with poor kids before you hand their moms that eviction notice. For a more exotic twist, travel to India or Africa. The poor are just like you. They like nice things. So don't give them any. Give them the old clothes you were planning to throw away. Smile, take a picture, and post it on Instagram, TikTok, and every other platform to show the world the kind of person you are. Smiling next to the poors will get you mad likes and awes from Ivy League admission officers. If that's not enough, tell daddy to donate a library. Don't say it's for you. He doesn't love you that much. Say it's for the one thing he loves most in the world: tax deductions. Step 3. The Ivy League degree. Now, don't slip up on this. The college you go to is the most important part of any resume for a man in finance. It's Ivy League or bust. The only man in finance who goes to a state school is the loan officer at the Donkey Farmers Credit Union in Hickstown, Kentucky. They pay 11 peanuts and a pound of donkey steak. It's not the sort of paycheck that inspires shallow girls to make TikToks about men in finance. If you want to make real money, you have to go to the kind of place that educates war criminals: Harvard, Yale, or Congress. In college, the poors who want to get into finance will be studying nonsense like math, business, or law. Let them. They're poor anyway. They don't know any better. You should major in the things that actually matter: confidence, a firm handshake, and a hangover cure. Step 4. Networking. Peasants also like to think college is a place for studying, but as always, they're wrong. College is for networking. Join a frat and party every day with the guys who are destined to become bank presidents because their families own the bank. Do all the things that bond men for life: chugging beer until you explode, get matching butt tattoos, and burying that dead hooker in the woods together. Spend all of your money on membership fees for country clubs, yacht clubs, and the occasional contribution to the police pension fund. On weekends, attend charity galas and play golf with your dad's friends and their friends and their friends. Don't forget to visit that one uncle who is an extended vacation in a country with no extradition treaty. Let the nerds worry about grades. Focus on making as many friends as you can. As the hustle bros say, your network is your net worth. Kiss ass with the right amount of enthusiasm, and your new friends will give you a heads up before they fart in your face. Step 5. Mastering the lingo. In the breaks between your 29th beer and your 28th line of Colombian energy powder, learn the lingo. You need to be able to throw around words like quantitative easing, leveraged buyouts, and EBITDA in regular conversation. I hope I don't need to tell you to watch the instruction manual, The Wolf of Wall Street. That thing should be your Bible. But there's probably one question bugging you. How about learning the skills men in finance are supposed to have? You know, trading stocks and making fat profits? You don't actually need to learn any of that. Here's the thing. Nobody can predict the stock market. Literally nobody. A blindfolded monkey picking stocks by throwing darts at the finance pages of a newspaper performs better than many so-called professional investors. Even Warren Buffett, the patron saint of capitalism, will tell you that simply buying the S&P 500 will give you better returns than any professional money manager. This is where you just buy stocks of the 500 biggest companies in America. It doesn't matter what they are. You're going to get an average return of 10%. Hedge funds, on the other hand, generate an average return of 5%. If you're bad at math, sorry. I don't know what's bigger between 5% and 10% either. Now, in any given year, 25% of hedge funds can beat the S&P 500. But over a 5 to 10 year period, the S&P beats pretty much all of them. Hedge funds are a lot like me in bed with a girl. I start off strong, and just when she starts screaming my name and telling me what an awesome lover I am, I wake up from the dream. Nobody knows anything about the market. They're all guessing, just like you. Once their luck runs out, their fake expertise becomes obvious for the whole world to see. The money managers who consistently beat the S&P 500 are extremely rare. Nobody knows what their secret is, but on a completely unrelated note, they tend to get busted for insider trading. A lot. Now I know what your next question is. If hedge funds can't outperform the market, if the men in finance aren't any better at picking stocks than a blindfolded monkey, how the hell are they going to make so much money? The name of the game is commissions. If you are a fund manager, either at a hedge fund or a private equity firm, and you manage $1 billion, the first thing you do is pay yourself 2% of that money as a management fee every single year. That's $20 million. Then you invest the remaining $980 million using the fancy algorithms designed by PhDs that, as we have seen, can't outperform a blindfolded monkey. If you just buy the S&P 500 and generate a 10% return on that $980 million, that's $98 million. Next, pay yourself 20% of that $98 million in returns as a performance fee. That's an extra $19.6 million in your pocket on top of the $20 million you paid yourself for before you even got to work. Guys in the business call this fee structure 2 and 20. I know 2 and 20 is not the best name, but in their defense, fucking ripoff was already taken. That's where the money in hedge funds and private equity comes from, management fees. So if you're in the business, your goal isn't to actually make money for people. Your goal is to convince people to give you their money so you can manage it for them. The more money you have under management, the more commissions you can pay yourself. If you 10x your assets under management from $1 billion to $20 billion, 2% of that is $200 million, and that's without the performance fees. If you're the creative type using, I don't know, let's call them questionable tactics to beat the market, you can raise your fees from 2 and 20 to 3 and 30. So even when hedge funds are beating the market, the money managers are still making more money from the fees than they do from actual trading profits. That's why you need to get into an Ivy League degree and master the lingo. Nobody is going to give you $10 billion to manage if you went to Arizona State and speak like an inbred goat. But if you go to Harvard and throw around words like derivatives or arbitrage, even if you don't know what they mean, people who don't know what those words mean either will be intimidated into thinking you're smarter than them and just give you their money. Then you pay yourself a fat commission with your client's money until you're richer than they are. Super easy. That is the finance game. Bamboozle people with fancy degrees and fancy words, and then get paid a 2% commission on billions of dollars for doing your job worse than a literal monkey. And it's not just hedge funds. This commission for nothing model is everywhere in finance. Credit card companies use it to take a cut of every purchase. Investment banks take a cut of every stock sale, and regular banks have mastered the art of paying you 0.01% on your savings, then turning around and loaning those savings to Bob at 10%. And that's on top of the late fees, transaction fees, ATM fees, consultation fees, Forex fees, and 178 other fees. If your next bright idea is starting your own bank and getting rich, think again. The big boys have almost made it impossible for anybody to get into the game. The biggest tech companies in America were started 10, maybe 20 years ago. The big banks, on the other hand, are all over 200 years old. It takes years just to get approved for a license, and that's assuming you have 500 full-time lawyers billing you $1,000 an hour just to read the banking regulations. Once you have jumped all the hoops, there is a convenient panic that makes people withdraw all their money from small banks and transfer them to big banks. The small banks collapse and the bigger banks just get bigger until they do an oopsie and tank the economy. At which point the government decides to punish them by giving them a hug and $700 billion. It's almost impossible to change the system. Just get your fancy degree and let Goldman Sachs suck out your soul. Step 6. the internship and entry-level scramble. Now that you have everything, fancy degree, fancy lingo, and a bottomless pit in the spaces where your heart used to occupy, you can find a job. Acceptance rates at Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and big hedge funds like Citadel are less than 1%. So sending in your resume and praying is going to work about as well as the dry, "Hi, you used to slide into that girl's DMs last week." But if you've been networking properly, you can just call up on one of your buddies or your dad's buddies. If a buddy doesn't play ball, ask about his wife, and then casually mention all the fun you had while recording yourselves with that escort. That should help. Entry-level finance internships at fancy places pay in the $70,000 range, which is only enough for about 3 minutes of New York rent, so that trust fund should come in handy right about now. Interns are also expected to work 100 hours a week, no overtime. The heavy workload is intentionally there to weed out anybody who is too chicken to snort Pablo Escobar's special energy powder. Once again, if you spend your time well in college, it should be business as usual. There's no way around chemical stimulants. Many of the big finance firms have an up or out policy. If you haven't earned a promotion in 2 years, you get fired. Coffee is not going to help you pull 18-hour days on the regular. You need something stronger. Adderall, Colombian dust, or pure, unadulterated greed. Weaklings simply don't make it. After 2 years of crushing work and a disappointing salary, you'll finally get promoted from intern to a position with more job security and more money. Step 7. The lifestyle adjustments. After your promotion, you'll start making just enough money to afford a Patagonia vest and the cheapest BMW ever manufactured. But you won't be working any less. All of your friends will be buying Lamborghinis and taking helicopters to the Hamptons. You have to keep up. So you chug more Red Bull, snort a little more Colombian energy powder, and break 372 federal laws on insider trading. If you stay on your grind and you turn your blood into Schedule 1 narcotic, you can almost make enough money to buy your father's love. Step 8. The ultimate payoff. If you can't afford daddy's love, some mid-girls from TikTok will happily love you and your money for 3 years before she gets bored and files for divorce. Or perhaps you'll choose to play the field because you don't like to be tied down. But then your favorite stripper accidentally gets pregnant. She refuses to get rid of it. You're angry until she gives birth to your bouncing baby boy, Randolph Wotherington Von Finance Bro the Fourth. You're filled with joy until you get summoned to family court. When the judge tells you how you have to pay in child support, you begin to understand why your father never loved you.